Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. I have an amazing guest today, and she's going to talk about a project that she would like to have your help in, and I'm sure you're going to want to help. My guest today is Emily Rachel, and Emily has a very important story. We have a lot in common, and some things I can't even fathom that you've gone through, Emily. But why don't you take just a minute to share with people your story and why today is important. And in the meantime, I'm going to be monitoring people's comments because we are live on YouTube and Facebook. And anybody who has a question pertaining to this topic, which I'm going to let you handle, but anybody who's got questions, I'm gonna start posting them and ask away. So, Emily, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Shemaine. I really appreciate it. Today is a very important day for a lot of people that are going through mold. And to kind of give a little background, my family moved into a very toxic home. Before we ever moved into this toxic home, I used to think mold wasn't a big deal, couldn't hurt you. And then we found out otherwise. And mold devastated our health, our family. It killed our dog Kuja. It caused our firstborn son to suffer so much neurological damage and systemically that he regressed into severe autism. He's no longer autistic today because it was mold causing all of his challenges and issues, and we were able to detox him, but it took us 3 long years to do that. And now today there is, you can find that mold is now actually a culprit as causing a child to regress into autism. So those studies are out there now. And then it also caused us to lose our second son, Malachi. We found out shortly after leaving our toxic environment that we were expecting our second child. And of course, I didn't want to look further into if mold could be or could affect him in his development stage. It did. And what we found was the fusarium mold that my body was riddled with is the same mold that has been connected to 31 other children that developed anencephaly, which is a terminal birth defect. So we lost him at 35 weeks. Mold just devastated our family. And my husband and I decided to get into the industry to learn more about it, spread awareness. And what we found was that the number one hurdle for most people going through mold that keeps them from recovering is finances. There's no home insurance, there's no health insurance that is going to be there to help you financially to recover, to remediate, to get assessments, to get temporary housing, to replace your contents or items and clothing. And so me and another mother named Elizabeth Kripe, we started and co-founded the first nonprofit foundation set up in Malachis Name that is out there to financially assist those going through mold in order to help them recover faster, so that way they can close that nightmare chapter hopefully sooner than later and move on and but more importantly heal.
Mm-hmm.
And last month, we were a guest on Dr. Jill Carnahan's podcast. And out of nowhere, she felt it upon herself to throw out a challenge that she is willing to match up to $20,000 in donations for those that are currently on our wait list. And we have about just under $100,000 worth of applications or assistance that for those who have qualified and are on our wait list. So that would literally take care of almost half of the people that have already qualified and are waiting through our foundation to get financial assistance. And it ends tomorrow.
So that's why we wanted to get you on today. Before we get into, I want to ask you about exactly what the organization does, but can you tell me, and I would love to have somebody repost this, and in the meantime, while you're talking, I'll try to make a banner out of it, but it's Malachi's Message, right?
Mhm.
Is it .org?
.org. So it's MALACHIS message.org. And we created a page specifically for the Dr. Jill Carnahan challenge. To date, as of right now, we are at $18,555. So we're almost there. We are so close.
So we need people who are watching. If you have it upon your heart that you want to help some of these people, and I see a lot of comments coming in, and my group of people who know me and know that I've talked about mold quite a bit. And I did the documentary Killer House, and I'm writing a book about toxic mold to mirror that. And a lot of people do know that mold is devastating on not only your health, but on your finances and spiritually. Somebody commented here, mold is written about in the Bible. And I wanted to ask you, since Malachi is also in the Bible, why did you were already planning to name your son Malachi, but what in the Bible, it talks about Malachi, obviously, but that Malachi means message. So, or messenger. So what was it about that name Malachi that you really wanted to adhere to and attach this organization to?
So when my husband and I were trying to decide on names, we weren't deciding on anyone together, and we couldn't figure out which name we wanted. And one day, because we had no furniture, I was literally sitting on the ground in our house because we had just moved out of mold and we lost everything. And I opened up the Bible and just started looking at names there, and then I came across Malachi. And I was like, that I really love that name. And then I looked up the meaning of it, and it meant our angel as well as our message. And so both my husband and I immediately just felt compelled to name him this because we were in such a dark time. We felt that he was our angel being sent to us from God to let us know that everything was going to be okay, and that was his message of hope. And so when we lost him, and when we started this foundation, we felt that this foundation we wanted to give people hope. And we also wanted to serve as an angel of assistance for people. So we felt that his name was fitting because it means our angel, and it also means our message. And we not only want it to be a message of hope, but we also want it to be a message of many other things, that toxic mold is real and that it's dangerous, but you can recover and you can get better. So that is why we named the foundation in honor of him.
That's amazing. And I love that. I can't imagine, Emily, what you've been through. And you and I have been talking quite a bit. We text almost every day, and we've got another group of moldy moms, the Mold Mom Warriors, that we're all texting and supporting and uplifting one another through our struggles. And everybody's got a different struggle. What were some of the symptoms that you and your husband, Josh, had experienced? And you talked about your oldest son and what he was going through, but what were some of the things that you endured?
It was a blessing, to be honest, Shemaine, that I suffered as greatly as I did, because had I not, I may have just accepted the diagnosis of my son's autism diagnosis, because there was nothing back then linking mold as a culprit. But because I also, before moving to this house, I was a very athletic. I could run a 7:32 mile over 13 miles. I never had allergies before moving in this house. I was never sensitive to chemicals. I can't even, I don't even know when I went to the doctor. I never had to go to the doctor. I was very healthy. And then we moved into this home, and the first thing that I noticed was it affected my hormones, and my menstrual cycle just went crazy. I developed GI issues. I developed cystic acne all over my face, my neck, and my back. I had fatigue, joint pain, short-term memory issues. I would forget an entire conversation, which caused a lot of fights between me and my husband. My husband, because he was leaving the house to go to work, where me and my son and our dogs weren't, we were exposed more, so he wasn't as symptomatic in the beginning. But when he started to stay home more to help me, that's when he started to have nosebleeds, chronic fatigue, joint pain to where he could barely stand up in the mornings, GI issues. He started to lose his vision. He suffered greatly in his dental area. He actually, a tooth just fell out of his mouth one day, and we actually had to remove 8 more teeth because of how mold affected his teeth and caused all this bacterial and
It's amazing that people don't realize, and which is why you and I are speaking out about it, and so many other people. I've had a couple of comments here, and I wanted to get your take on this. Kevin Scholl asks, did the detox help your son recover from autism? Did you do a specific detox with your son, or just getting out of the house, notice that his behavior changed?
So when we got him out of the home, within 6 weeks, he went from this child who you could barely get near the bathtub water, because he would just start screaming and waving his arms, to he went back to loving baths. He went from not wanting to be held to actually wanting to be cuddled again. He actually started dancing again when he stopped doing any of that. I mean, he literally, when you looked at my son when he was in mold, towards the end of it, it was as if the lights were off. He wasn't even there. Everything set him off. Noise set him off. Um, Lights set him off. He wanted all the rooms dark. He didn't want to play anymore. He would just sit there all day long, and he would just start screaming out of nowhere. And I realized, because I suffered too from debilitating anxiety attacks, which I never had in my life, but out of nowhere one day I was walking up the stairs and I had this anxiety attack that put me on the ground. And I realized that's what was happening to my son Sebastian. You couldn't calm him down when he was going through one of these anxiety attacks. Um,
And
so
that's one of the problems, is that it affects everybody differently and people don't realize it. And you might think, it's just an anxiety attack. Well, compounded over days and weeks and months and even years, eventually what a lot of people start doing is they take medication to cover things. Like for me, it was migraines. So I'm taking this medication that's going to cover the problem of the migraine. The problem is still there until you remove that problem, which is why we want to do remediation and talk about that as well. But why we want to get to the problem and eliminate mold and water infiltration. And somebody said here, I'm looking back at the comment, that they're from Michigan. They think the whole state has mold. The problem is that you could live in Alaska and you could still have mold in your home. You could live in Hawaii and still have mold in your home. We're talking about the air inside your home, right?
mhm. And I think that, unfortunately, we've normalized mold growth in
Yeah.
homes. And, to be quite honest, mold growth isn't going to grow unless there's a moisture problem. So when you see mold growth, that's a sign of a moisture problem that shouldn't be occurring. We need to stop normalizing mold growth, because unfortunately, a couple industries want us to do that because they don't want to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, that's a big problem. So Emily, Malachi's message, you've got a deadline. By
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, you want to reach it. And I'm going to ask everybody watching here, please share this and please make a donation to Malachi's message, whatever it might be. What are some of the things that you and your organization help other people who are experiencing toxic mold illness? What do you help them with?
So we have a toy replacement fund, and we actually just got through doing a Pie in the Face fundraiser to raise funds to help kids replace the toys that they lose to mold. And we met our goal there. We help people replace their contents and items, so furniture replacement. We help people replace their clothing. We help them with medical expenses up to $5,000 per person. We help them with mold remediation up to $10,000. We help them with their mold assessment costs up to $1,000. And we also help them with temporary housing, because a lot of people can't afford to get out of their home. So we help them up to, I think it's $10,000 worth of temporary housing costs, so that they can get out of the home. But of course, they have to first qualify in order to be accepted. And there are some guidelines there on our foundation for them to read and see if they meet those guidelines.
Yeah, obviously you want to make sure that somebody's not just trying to take the money from you and run, but
Mhm.
there are a lot of people who are suffering. And God bless you guys for speaking out and for paying this forward. And you started out by saying, had you not gotten sickened, you don't think you would be here right now and having this message, this Malachi's message. And I feel the same way, even though I didn't want to endure this, and I don't want anybody else to endure this, which is why I'm speaking out. I do think it's made me stronger and more inquisitive, and I search for answers for a lot of different things, like what's happening in the world today. And I'm not, because that's what happened to me when we first got exposed to toxic mold. Between the walls of our home, we never saw anything. We just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I went to dozens of different doctors who just said, it's all in your head. anxiety, migraines, whatever, teeth problem, whatever it is, no big deal. And that's the problem, is they don't take it seriously. And I like what you said, Emily, that we have to stop normalizing this. The human body was meant to be healthy,
Mhm.
and we cannot continue to do God's good work unless we are healthy. So thank you so much for speaking out and for sharing your story. I really appreciate that. I know everybody else here does as well. And I hope that everyone else will make a donation to malachismessage.org. Anything else that you want to say to everybody watching today?
I honestly just want to tell you thank you, Shemaine, because, I think it's when you go through something like what you went through and what I went through and what others have gone through, I think we have a duty to share the truth, because there's a parent at home right now that's wondering why their child isn't getting better, or why they aren't getting better. And you were one of the people that was the first story that I read that made me feel like, okay, this is real. I mean, Shemaine Nugent went through this and she's telling people what happened to her. And these are very similar symptoms that we experienced. And so by sharing your story, Shemaine, and the documentary you have, which is amazing, that is going to save millions and help people understand the real truth. So I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing.
Well, we got to stick together, girlfriend. And thank you so much. And I hope we can circle back in a few days and hear that you have reached your goal. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
All right, Emily, I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. And everybody else, please go to malachismessage.org and make a donation, whatever you can. It's going to a great cause. All right, everybody, have a great day. Make it a great day and do something healthy and happy for you today. See you later. Bye.